There is a moment that almost every NBA player from the 1980s can describe in vivid detail. The first time they stepped onto the court against Larry Bird. Not the first time they heard his name, not the first time they watched him on TV, but the first time they felt the full weight of his presence in a live game. And almost without exception, the experience shook them. Bird was not supposed to be great the way he was great. He was slow by NBA standards. He couldn't jump. He didn't have the explosiveness or the length that scouts and coaches drooled over. On paper, plenty of players had more tools. But the moment the ball was in his hands, something happened that nobody had an easy explanation for. He was simply better than you, more prepared, more confident, more ruthless. What you're about to watch is 20 players, legends themselves, describing what it felt like to go up against Larry Bird for the first time. Some were rookies getting humiliated. Some were all-stars who thought they were ready. Some were college kids who thought they could hang with the dream team. None of them were prepared. These are their words. Dennis Scott came into the NBA in 1990 as a highly touted shooting guard out of Georgia Tech. He was athletic, had a smooth three-point stroke, and was brimming with confidence. He had heard about Larry Bird, of course. Everyone had. But Bird was already a veteran by then, a few years removed from his peak, and Scott figured he had the tools to compete. He was wrong before the opening tip even happened.
Well, we talk about trash talking, and most people think Gary Payton and Reggie Miller are the best trash talkers ever. Larry Bird is the best trash talker ever. My rookie year coming to the Boston Garden, he says, "What's up, Rook? Hey, I hear you're a great shooter. I heard you had a great career at Georgia Tech, but you're about to foul out in this game." I look at Larry Legend, "What do you mean? First time I catch it, I'm a pump fake, you're going to reach for it, foul." What happened? First possession, he catches it, I reach for it, foul. Goes to the free throw line, I come back down the court, I hit a big three, I say in your face. Why did I do that? He comes back down the court, next time catches it, shows me the ball, I reach for it again, beep, hey Rook, go have a seat and I'll see you in the second quarter. Never talk trash to a legend, otherwise you might have a seat early.
What makes this story so perfectly Larry Bird is not just the trash talk, it's the precision of it. Bird didn't just talk. He laid out a specific, detailed prediction for what was about to happen, and then he made it happen twice in a row, almost as if he had scripted it. Scott never saw a pump fake coming the first time, reached in, got the foul, came back down, hit a three, talked back to Bird, and then walked right into the exact same trap again. That was Bird's genius. He didn't just outplay you, he told you how he was going to outplay you, watched you fail to stop it anyway, and then sent you to the bench. Scott's rookie year introduction to Larry Legend is a masterclass in psychological dominance, and it only took about 4 minutes of game time. Michael Jordan calling someone one of the dirtiest players he faced is not a casual statement. Jordan played during the era of the Detroit Pistons bad boys, Lame Beer, Rodman, players who were specifically and systematically designed to make his life miserable. He played through elbows and hip checks and every form of physical punishment the NBA allowed, and a few it didn't. And yet, Jordan's reflection on Larry Bird gets at something different from all of that.
273 professional athletes here, professional basketball players, and you say who's the dirtiest player in the NBA? Mm-hmm. You know, I say 95% I say Lame Beer or Larry Bird.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And what does dirty consist of?
Holding, pulling, hard fouls. Lame Beer is very, very dirty in terms of, you know, you can see Lame Beer. He doesn't jump well. Yeah. He can't block a shot. Yeah. So, this is true. I mean, this is not to be knocking him, but yeah. You know, you got, let's say myself on the break and he's on the break. You know, he's not gonna block my shot.
Right.
I mean, do you really think he would?
No.
See, that's what I'm saying. No. So to see him coming at me with full steam ahead, I mean, it's only to knock me over, knock me off balance. Can't block my shot. I already said that. I got Air Jordans on. He's got to do something. But I mean, that's the type of thing that he does, and people don't appreciate because we know he can't block shots. But Larry is good with, you know, he can play you kind of slow, and then all of a sudden he'll grab your pants and then get open, get a layup, get a three-point play. That type of thing. That's smart.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not really cheap, but that's smart.
So Larry Bird is a very bright ball player.
Yeah, he's bright. Yeah. He overcomes a lot of the things, a lot of the natural ability things that he doesn't have. He may not be the quickest guy, he may not be able to jump, but he thinks very well.
What Jordan recognized in Bird wasn't just toughness or physicality, it was intelligence. Bird understood exactly what he was doing. Every grab, every bump, every pump fake, and foul drawing maneuver, none of it was accidental. None of it was within the spirit of the rules, while technically staying inside the letter of them. Bird had taken the entire rulebook, studied every edge, and built a system around exploiting those edges, and it terrified a young Michael Jordan. Dominique Wilkins was one of the most electrifying scorers of his generation. The human highlight film didn't just play basketball. He put on a show every single night, with ferocious dunks, unstoppable mid-range jumpers, and an offensive bag that very few defenders could consistently slow down. He was not a player who got psyched out. He psyched other people out. And yet, the first time he matched up with Larry Bird, Bird walked him through every emotion on the spectrum: frustration, anger, confusion, and finally, a begrudging, almost reluctant respect.
Yeah, that was the first time Bird ever talked trash to me. It was my rookie season, my first game I ever played against him.
What'd he say?
And that was the only thing. I can't even tell you what he said.
Clean up the language. What?
One of the things the first thing, I think really the only thing he said to me, I'm guarding him. It's my first play. He's coming down the court and I'm guarding him. He looks at me, he said, "I don't know why they have you guarding me, Holmes." And he shoots the three. Now, I wasn't upset he made the three. I said, but this son of a gun just called me Holmes. But it was funny because after that, because they knew I was going to keep coming, But that was the only time he ever talked trash to me. And then we had a lot of respect for each other over the years. And so I never forget that one thing, though, man. I'm like,
Bird didn't just trash talk Wilkins. He did it with the casual confidence of someone who had already decided the outcome. "I don't know why they got you guarding me, Holmes. You can't guard me." 2 threes later, Wilkins was fuming. He eventually dunked so hard on Bird that Bird hit the basket support and fell. Most players would have backed off after that. Bird got up off the floor and told Wilkins he liked his guts, then promised to go for 40 on him that night anyway. He finished with 39. For Bird, that was practically a miss. Dennis Rodman is one of the greatest defenders in the history of professional basketball. During his time with the Detroit Pistons, he guarded everyone: Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and held his own against all of them. He was relentless, physical, cerebral, and almost pathologically committed to stopping whoever he was assigned to. If anyone was built to handle Larry Bird on paper, it was Rodman. Larry Bird did not care about that paper.
Participate in the first game in 1986, 87, and I tried to do my best to guard Larry Bird. It didn't work too well. He kind of schooled me a little bit. He kind of schooled me the whole game. Every game we played, he said, "Dennis, are you guarding me? Take that for you." "All right, I take that, Larry." I take that. There's sort of jump shot. I said, "Dennis, you like that?" I said, "You know what, man? The hell with you." Hell with you. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But after a couple of years under my belt, I said, "Okay, great. I belong in this league, brother. I belong in this league." And all of a sudden now Larry Bird started to respect me.
What Rodman describes from his early years against Bird is a humbling that happened over and over again. Not just once, not just in one memorable game, but consistently, every single time they played. Bird would ask if Rodman was guarding him, hit a shot, and then ask if he liked it. There was nothing Rodman could do. And what's striking about how Rodman tells this story is that there's no bitterness in it. There's almost a reverence. Because eventually, after years of getting schooled, Bird started to respect Rodman, and Rodman understood that getting Bird's respect was something worth going through all of that to earn. John Salley was a long, versatile big man for the Detroit Pistons during their Bad Boys dynasty, a team famous for brutal, physical defense and an absolute refusal to give opposing superstars any comfort whatsoever. The Pistons took pride in making every game ugly for the opposition. Bill Laimbeer was in the trenches. Rodman was on the wings. Chuck Daly ran one of the most disciplined defensive systems in NBA history. And then one day, Daly put Sally on Larry Bird one-on-one.
So Larry knew who I was. And I get in, Chuck Daly has me starting one time, and Larry looks around and goes, "What's up, Sal?" I said, "Nah." He goes, "You on me?" I said, "Yeah, I got size on you right now. I've been watching every movie." He goes, "Y'all not double teaming?" And he's looking around. He goes, "Yo." I go, "Nah, it's just me, fella." He goes, "Mouse in the house." Mouse in the house, and they change the play, and he catches the ball, he does this, and he shoots it. He says, Sal, you better ask for a double team, bro. I got 2 quick fouls because I'm smart like that. Yeah, he was, and he was always in shape, and he hated Bill Laimbeer. So when you got a guy that hates somebody, he's playing for it.
The way Sally tells it, there's almost an innocence to how he walked into the situation. He had size on Bird. He had studied his moves. He felt ready. Bird assessed the matchup in about 3 seconds, asked if they weren't double teaming, heard no, and immediately called out Mouse in the house, like he was announcing a menu item. 1 jab step, 1 jumper, and then the instruction. Sal, you better ask for a double team, bruh. Sally got the message. This story is John Sally being the most likable guy in the world, while explaining how thoroughly he got handled. Xavier McDaniel was one of the toughest, most physical small forwards of the mid-1980s. The X-Man didn't back down from anyone. He was strong, aggressive, and had the kind of edge that made opposing coaches scheme around him. He was not the type to be rattled, and he certainly wasn't the type to stand there in awe while someone called their shot like Babe Ruth in the World Series. Larry Bird called his shot anyway.
It was a tie game. They had the ball, and DJ was stalling the basketball. You know, Larry was kind of standing outside behind him, like denying him the ball. And they called a timeout, and he turned around and looked at me and said, I'm gonna score right here on you. And I said, I know you will, I'll be ready.
10 seconds. 5, and Bird has the basketball. Look out. 2 seconds on the clock, and timeout used by the Sonics.
And he shot a turnaround jump shot. I just looked back, and the ball just went in, hit all net, and he said, I told you so.
The scene McDaniel describes is almost cinematic. Tied game, ball in Bird's hands. Bird turns to McDaniel and announces, flat out, Emma score right here on you. Not taunting, not posturing, just informing. McDaniel gives him credit, tells him he'll be ready. Bird catches the ball, hits a turnaround jumper, buries it, and says, told you so. McDaniel says it with the kind of helpless admiration that only comes from actually living it. You had to be there to understand that Bird wasn't being a jerk. He was just being correct. Larry Johnson was a different kind of player. Powerful, versatile, with a physical presence that commanded respect from the moment he walked onto the floor. As Grandmama in those Charlotte Hornets commercials, he was beloved by fans. On the court, he was a load. He had the strength to bang with big men and the skill to create off the dribble, and he was not the kind of player who typically got talked out of his game. But Larry Bird didn't just talk Larry Johnson out of his game. He gave him a full scouting report on himself in real time, and there was nothing Johnson could do with the information. As Larry Johnson said, he told me what move he was going to make. He told me what shot he would use. After he made the shot, Bird would tell me how to guard him. Then, he wouldn't stop talking about how he was going to do it all over again. Larry Bird, in his final years, was still a great baller. And then, on the All the Smoke podcast, he had more to say.
First game against Larry, and Hunt and Larry became cool. So Hunt used to tell me, Hunt was in Boston training camp to the last cut. To the last Anderson Hunt, ladies and gentlemen. He was in their training camp to the last cut, and their first game was against Charlotte. And he was at practice. He said, man, Larry, this is what I'm gonna do to your boy. This is what I'm gonna do to your boy the first game. And he gave it to me. But
Bird was a motherfucker though.
He was a slow, bad motherfucker, man. He was a slow, he could play, and he was old because he had a bad back.
What made Larry special was that he gave you the work the way he knew he was going to, even at an old age. He was almost coaching his defenders while cooking them, and made for some of the most memorable moments in NBA history. Brian Shaw's story is unique because it didn't come from facing Bird on the opposite team. It came from joining his team. Shaw signed with the Boston Celtics in the late 1980s, having spent time watching Bird dominate from the outside. He had seen it on television. He had heard the stories. And like a lot of people, he had a quiet internal skepticism about whether Bird was really as good as all that, or whether the reputation was partially a product of the era. He found out on day 1 of practice, skeptic to convert in about 15 minutes of practice, before a single regular season game had even been played. Cedric Maxwell had a similar encounter. Maxwell wasn't playing against Bird in a regular season game. He was another one of Bird's own teammates, the reigning star of the Boston Celtics, a man who had been the best player in the building for the previous season, averaging 20 and 10. And then Bird arrived at practice, and Maxwell's first instinct was essentially, this guy?
I was the first guy really to guard Larry. And I remember I was like you, I was the king of the mountain, man. I was averaging about 20 and 10 when Bird got here. Yeah. So I'm thinking he's coming to this building. I'm looking at him, but we have the first practice. I'm thinking like, this ought to be a piece of cake. Yeah. Guy don't look fast, don't look good. Yeah. I'm about to do something to him.
Yeah. Indiana.
Boy, I'm telling you what, it changed my opinion about racism in this world. Because I remember he scored the first basket, Jet, on me. I scored on him, second basket. But as I proceeded, he kept going further and further and further away. And by the end of the practice, it finished. The first black person I got to, I said, you know what? That fucking white guy can play down there. So that was my thing.
Was he giving you kind of looks, or what was it?
No, he didn't give you the looks, but then every other person of color would ask me when the Celtics got ready to play, they're like, yo, man, how's this kid Bird? You about to find out.
Oh, you about to find out. Right.
Because Bird didn't look like a threat. He didn't look fast. He didn't look explosive. He didn't carry himself with the kind of swaggering physical presence that Maxwell was used to respecting in other players. So Maxwell went into that first practice, thinking it would be a piece of cake. You just couldn't think that way with him. Jason Williams was a rookie for the Philadelphia 76ers in 1990, which means he caught Bird in the twilight of his career, a player already dealing with the back injuries that would eventually force him to retire. You might think that would have meant a slightly less terrifying version of Larry Bird? You would be wrong. Bird, even at less than full capacity, had two things that never diminished: his competitive fire and his memory for disrespect.
I remember me walking into the locker room and seeing Coach Bird there, and I remember when I first came to the league, he was my second game. He must have lit me up for 45 points. And I wanted to get in the game, and he kept going, put the rookie in, put the rookie in, put the effing rookie in. So when I got there to the locker room, he just looked at me and said, your minutes are on the board. So that's how you know when you're going to play when you're going in an all-star game, right? And I looked at him and said, thanks, Coach. He goes, you effing rookie.
Even as a coach, he kept that same energy, which is revitalizing to see. But as most stories go with Larry Bird and rookies, the rookie gets cooked. There is no rivalry in NBA history quite like Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird. They defined an era, saved a league, and pushed each other to greatness for more than a decade. But before the championships and the finals matchups and the mythology, before any of that, there was a young Irvin Johnson watching a young Larry Bird eat up the college scene, and it shocked him.
I called home. I said, it's true about this boy. I was calling everybody, this dude can play. When I first met him, I said, all right, I'm gonna see this dude, this white cat can really go like he said.
Because the verdict is always out on white boys that can hoop, with all due respect. It's always out.
It's respect, this ain't nothing bad. So I said, let me see what he can do.
But Larry had something that most white boys don't have. Just say that. Just keep it real.
Man,
Larry was different now. Larry was different now.
He had a little bit of nigger.
Yeah, he was different now. He was different now. Larry was different now.
That boy, he can play, man. I saw this dude eat Jack Givens up. He was player of the year that year.
Kentucky, right?
Yeah, from Kentucky. And Larry Bird was just slicing and dicing him. And I said, oh.
Yeah.
And so that was my first time seeing him, and then to be out on the court with him in college for that national championship game. And then, of course, what happened in the NBA. But I would say that we got a chance to change the league.
Yep.
What a blessing it was. He ended up in Boston, and then I ended up out here. My personality was LA, Hollywood. His personality was Boston.
Right.
And it worked for the whole league.
Even though Magic knew he was a great player, he also knew when he was watching greatness outside of himself. And Larry Bird, even at a fresher age, exuded that greatness. In the summer of 1992, USA Basketball invited a group of elite college players to scrimmage the Dream Team, the most loaded basketball roster ever assembled, in preparation for the Barcelona Olympics. Jamal Mashburn was one of those players, along with Chris Webber, Allen Houston, Rodney Rogers, and Grant Hill. They were the best college players in the country. They were also about to get an education, because after they realized just who they were up against, and after they said some things that probably weren't wise to say, they were in for a treat.
So me and Chris Webber, we go up to our floor and we're walking in the corridor and we see this tall white guy coming down the hall. And I'm like, damn, that looked like Larry Bird. So Larry Bird coming down the hallway, me and Chris Webber, and Larry Bird, you don't realize how big Larry Bird is until you stand up close to Larry Bird. Larry Bird, legit 6'10". Rodney Rogers says something it's a group of them. It's Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and everybody's shooting the shit. And Rodney Rogers said, hey, Larry, you ain't hit a jumper since 84. Magic heard that shit. And we ain't think none of it. The next day we came in, and I never seen this. And this one I was like, this is a different breed. Magic Johnson fed Larry Bird the ball probably about 8 times in a row down court. Larry Bird got the ball on Rodney Rogers, and every time he was about to make a move, he told him what he was going to do. One dribble, pull up, going left, off glass. One dribble, going right, spin, shot, bucket. He scored 9 times or 8 times in a row, left the court to go lay down because he couldn't sit on a bench.
Right,
he had to lay down
his
because
back
of his
was
back.
messed up.
And said, young fella, look like 84, huh?
This was an aging, hurting Larry Bird. His back was in disarray, but once he heard someone talking crazy about him, he didn't let it slide one bit. Eddie Johnson came into the NBA in 1981 as a second-round pick out of the University of Illinois, a shooting guard with a smooth offensive game and enough ability to carve out a long professional career. But none of that mattered on his second night in the league, when his Kansas City Kings walked into Boston Garden and he found himself standing next to Larry Bird on the opening jump ball. His own veterans warned him before the game, don't pay attention to him, just ignore whatever he says. It was good advice. Eddie Johnson simply could not take it.
I'm scared to death already. Not just a Bird, but, I played against McHale in college, so he was cool. But Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson, I'm looking at all these dudes, man, and I'm intimidated. I had played against Danny Ainge in college. So, but Bird walks out at the jump, and the veterans on my team said, Eddie, just don't pay attention to him. Fine. So I mind my own business on the jump, and he walks out, and he just stands next to me, and he leans over and he looks at me. And I didn't pay him any attention. He said, do you honestly think you gonna guard me, motherfucker? Cursed at me. Like, what? I just didn't say nothing. Then he stands up and he looks over at our bench and he looks at Cotton. You all think this rookie gonna guard me? Man, I'm gonna bust you up, just right in my ear. And I'm just looking forward. I'm like, and so by that time, all the guys on the floor is just cracking up, even my teammates. So I'm like, would this official please throw this ball up? So the official couldn't throw the ball up because there was something going on the side. So then finally he walks around, stands in front of me, he said, I'm gonna tell you something right now. I'm gonna wear your ass out. And then I looked at him, I said, I'm here, don't worry about it. I said, you ain't intimidating nobody. I said, I'm from Chicago, where you from? He started laughing. Game starts, and he's just wearing me out, okay? And I'm trying to go back at him. I'm shooting bricks. And in the fourth quarter he was in, it was late. Game was kind of close. And he came down, he said, you talking all that junk. I bet you can't do this. And he raises up from Steph Curry range. And he shoots an air ball. And I look at him, he like, that don't matter. It's the fact that I can do it.
What makes this story different from most of the other Bird encounters is the way it ends. It doesn't end with Bird winning. It ends with Eddie Johnson refusing to lose. Bird spent that game and what followed riding Johnson the way he rode every other young player who crossed his path, until one night Johnson caught him.
I said, I'm so tired of his mouth. So I drive, I give him an up fake, he goes for it, and I come up and I catch him right in his mouth. And I laid it in for an and one, and they called a foul on him. So we're on the free throw line, and he says to me, that's all you can do is score. You can't defend anybody. I said, I can do one other thing though. What's that? I can make you bleed. Because his mouth was bleeding. So he didn't like that. So after the game, I'm in there getting dressed and everything, you know, and he walks into our locker room. And he knew Jerry Reynolds. So that was his reason to walk into the locker room.
Ice, right?
Yeah. No. Jerry Reynolds, the coach.
Oh, the coach.
In Sacramento. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so he walks in and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh. And because I had total respect for him. Still do. One of my favorite players ever. Love him to death. He taught me so much. But he walks over to me. And I'm like, is this fool gonna try to fight me in here? Because I'm ready to go. I ain't running for nobody. And he looks at me and he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out his keys. You know, back in the day, you know, they didn't have a key card. They had the big room keys, right?
Keys. Yep.
He tosses me his room key. Why don't you come by the hotel? You and I can finish it alone. And we'll see who can make somebody bleed.
After the game, Bird came looking for him in the locker room and almost got physical. What happened instead was something more meaningful. Bird never trash-talked Eddie Johnson again. In a career that spanned 17 seasons and never included an all-star selection, despite averaging nearly 23 points a game at his peak, that silent nod from Larry Bird might have been the most honest review Johnson ever received. Isaiah Thomas has one of the best Larry Bird stories as someone who was near the top of his game while Bird was still around as well.
Now, our back line at one time it was Kelly Tripucka, Bill Laimbeer, Ken Benson. 3 white dudes.
2 of them I ain't ever heard of.
Okay. All right. So we walk out on the court and he said, who guarding me? And I said, well, hey, you know, we both from Indiana, we talking stuff. Me and his mom had a close relationship in college. His mom would write me like notes, was even writing me notes like when I was in the pros, like, you know, good luck, everything else, right? So Larry used to always call me Cheesy, right? He's like, Cheesy, who guarded me? And I was like, you know, I got Kelly, I got Lamb, I got Benson. He's like, you ain't got no brothers? He's like you? He's like you?
Disrespecting me.
That's what he said.
Straight up.
That's exactly what he said. He said, hey man, you can't put no white dude on me.
Hey,
that is straight disrespect, right? He said, don't put no white dude on me. So check this out. So the next year we come back, I said, I got somebody for your ass, right?
Yeah.
He said, who you got? I said, Robin. He said, okay, he's a little better. He said, but don't ever put no white dude on me because that is disrespectful.
I mean, Thomas's story tells you pretty much everything that you need to know about Bird's confidence and swagger. He was almost joking when he would say certain things, but in reality, we all know that he was just looking for a way to prove that he was the best player on the court and to look for ways to get others out of their element. One of the most famous and most well-known Larry Bird moments is told in a story by Byron Scott. Just take a listen in on this one.
A lot of people don't know this. You probably know this, Dan, but Larry Bird was one of the biggest trash talkers in basketball. And a lot of people say, really? You know, they thought it was Reggie or Charles. Larry Bird talked more trash on the basketball court than anybody I've ever played against. And he told me 2 things one game. You know, our rotations, double teaming Kevin McHale, always had to rotate to the corner, and Larry Bird was the one shooting it. You know, so he shot one, and I mean, I'm trying to block this shot, and he would just tell me, Scott, you're a little too late. You know, a little too late. So we playing him, and the last play, he says to James Worthy, he says, you guys don't have to worry about it. I'm going to go right over there that corner. He said, they're going to set a screen for me. We're taking the ball out. He said, I'm going to curl right over. And he's telling us to play. He's telling us to play before they even take it out. He said, I'm going to go right over to that corner, and I'm going to catch it, and I'm going to shoot it, and I'm going to tie the game or win the game, whatever the case may be. They take the ball out, and I think it was either Danny or
DJ,
the late, great DJ.
Yeah.
Take the ball out, the man curl right to the corner, caught the shot, shot a 3,
and
game over. It's like, are you effing kidding me? That's my Larry Bird story.
Bird used to tell people, I remember he told me a story about Xavier McDaniel. He said,
The X-Man, yeah.
X, I'm going to get the ball right here. I'm going to shoot a jumper right in your face. And then he got the ball and shot it right in his face.
Yeah.
And Bird says to X, I told you I was going to do it.
I like your accent. I like it. That's pretty good. But that was Larry. I mean, Larry was just, and he was saying in such a calm way that you didn't think it was trash talking, but it's trash talking. You're not going to tell me you're going to go over there and shoot the ball in my face. That's trash talking. But he would tell you before the play even started. He just come out and say, guys, you ain't got to worry. This is where the ball going. I'm going to catch it over here. And he would tell you to play and catch it over there and shoot it.
He could back up literally anything that he said. He was amazing because of that. Scott has this story, but so many other guys have similar ones. I mean, think about how demoralizing it might be for a young player. You finally grind and make it to the league, just for this dude from French Lick to come into your space, tell you what he's about to do, and then do it right over you. Bird was a maniac with some of the things he said and did, but he was right and could back up his talk. Gary Payton stood on business. We all know that. He was one of the greatest defensive guards in the league and is still one of the toughest guards of all time. But none of that matters when you're talking about Larry Bird, the man who was scared of literally nobody.
Oh, no question.
Bird talk shit, like we talk or
Let me
like.
tell y'all something. Bird used to tell me, look here, man, I'm gonna go shoot this motherfucking jumper in your face right there in that corner. And it's gonna be your Christmas present. I'm gonna wrap it up and bust your head open. All that shit. The coldest dude I ever seen with that shit, man. Everybody be talking about these greats. They'll be always mentioning him. He was the shit. Yeah. The shit, man. He'll give it to you any way he wanted to. Larry Bird was cold.
He called Larry Legend the coldest dude he had ever seen. And this guy was playing around legends. MJ, Shaq, Tim Duncan, but there was just something special about the guy from Indiana who looked like he could be anything but a basketball player at first glance. Every single one of these stories essentially says the same thing in a different way, that nothing fully prepared these guys for Larry Bird, and that walking off the court after that first encounter, they understood basketball in a way they hadn't before. What Bird gave these players was something that no amount of film study or scouting reports could replicate. The experience of competing against someone who had thought more carefully about the game than you had, prepared more thoroughly than you had, and was more willing to make you uncomfortable than anyone you'd ever faced. He wasn't the most athletic player on the floor. He was the most ready. The stories you just heard span rookies and all-stars, teammates and rivals, players from the beginning of Bird's career to its final season. And across all of them, the response is always the same. First shock, then frustration, then a kind of awe that never fully goes away even decades later. That's the mark of a truly special player. Not just that he dominated, but that the people he dominated never stopped thinking about it. Larry Bird retired in 1992, but in the memories of every player who ever guarded him, he never really stopped playing. If you want to understand what made him great, these voices are your answer.
Well, this balcony is rocking and swaying right now. It's supposed to be made of steel. What a play by Larry